Welcome everybody. Happy Friday. I'm glad you've joined me today on Stampin' Peace with Mary Knabe, coming to you live from Columbus, Ohio. And it's a beautiful, beautiful June day. So I hope you have some time to go out and enjoy the beautiful weather wherever you are. I will be getting out after the Facebook Live because I need to mow my grass, but that's okay. I enjoy being out and I don't mind doing that. And I might even make a trip to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy some more flowers because I'd like to add some to my flower pots. Today, and I'll show you our project in just a moment, but today is a fun fold demonstration. And I'm using the Sweet as a Peach bundle as well as some of the Designer Series paper. And I'm also using one of the dies from the Scallop Contours die collection. And this coordinates with the Color and Contour stamp set. But I am just using the small scallop rectangle die today. All of these things can be found in our new annual catalog. All right, let me show you today's card. Here's the big reveal. So it lays flat, as you can see, to fit in an envelope, but then it has the center easel. There is some space inside for writing a quick message or a brief note. And then the recipient of your card can stand it up on their mantle or coffee table, wherever they like, a pretty shelf. So it makes a nice, fun decoration for your card recipient as well. Be sure that you are commenting throughout this live and that you share, because then your name will be entered into a drawing to receive today's card that I'm going to demonstrate for you. So I'm going to set this aside. Before we actually start constructing the card, I want to do my stamping and then give you a couple of tips for stamping or using multiple color inks on the same stamp so that you get more dimension with your stamped image, because you'll have then a tone, various tones of the same color. So the first thing I'm going to do is ink up my large peach stamp with pale papaya, one of our new in colors. And then I'm going to, let me see here, use a sponge dauber with Calypso Coral, and I'm just going to lightly tap that sponge dauber around my edge. I'm going a little heavier on the one side, and you can decide how much you want to do as far as color, if you want it to be a lighter colored peach or more of the dark. But you can see I've got both shades in there, really pretty. Now, before I show you the second way, I do want to clean that stamp with my Simply Chamois. Do you guys have the Simply Chamois? Oh, love that. Some of the best $8 I've ever spent. So the second way, and I can't even remember the name of this technique, so if one of you demonstrators out there, or paper crafters, remembers the name of this technique, please share it. But what I'm going to do is, in my darker color of ink, the Calypso Coral, I'm just kind of going to roll the edges. Can you see that? Oh, this is a little bit juicy, so I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. Yeah, not quite what I was going for. I think I was too heavy on that. Let me try again. So, and then I'm trying to think how I can hold this. So I'm just tapping the edges a little bit. Maybe that's what I need to do. Just kind of tap the edges. And I might want to go a little bit more on the one side. I personally like the sponge dauber technique because I think the colors blend better, but I know several people that do this. So I wanted to show you both because I just think it's nice for you to have different options, even with our techniques, because sometimes one appeals to people more than the other. Now, if you want to, like, I'm not really satisfied with this, so what I might do is just take my sponge dauber and go in right there and make it a little darker, and then you can see the lines are blending a little better. But you can decide which way you like. I personally feel like I have more control when I use the sponge daubers. The sponge daubers can be found in our annual catalog. They're really inexpensive. I think you get a set of, oops, I wanted Pear Pizzazz. I think you get a set of 5 in that. I'm just going to do this with the leaf a little bit, just kind of touch the edges. Okay, now I like that because I seem to have a shadow on that leaf. So I'm going to use these 2 images for my stamped pieces. And I'm going to trim that paper because now I'm going to cut it out with my, let me move these. So now I'm going to cut it out with my dies and using the mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Cindy, I knew somebody was going to ask that question. Every time I use my sponge daubers and people see that storage, I get asked. I purchased that several years ago online through Amazon. And I think if you just look up sponge dauber storage, that you should be able to find that. Or sponge dauber storage case, something like that. But I think it will pop right up. I've seen it there many times. And it is super handy. Also, I will try to find, again, it's been a long time, but I will try to find the printout with the colors. Now, and maybe I can post that to my VIP group or something. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40. Okay, and if I remember correctly, there is room in here for 40, which is our 5 color families. So if you want to include sponge daubers for all of the in colors or old colors you have, you would need a second case to accommodate those. I typically, for example, when I want to use sponge with in colors, I typically just find a color that's closed. So for like Pale Papaya, our newest in color, I use the Petal Pink Dauber. So usually you can find one pretty close. Otherwise, you want to rinse off the dauber first or make sure it's completely dry, get all of the ink out, and then you can use it in another color of your choice. Good question, though. Honestly, storage is a big part of our craft rooms and our craft space. Because as crafters, you know, we all have so much. And the more organized we have it, the easier it is to get to. So it makes us more efficient with our time. And then we always know what we have. And that's the best part. When things are unorganized or in a mess, we don't really know what we have. And it's not easy to find. We waste time searching and looking, or maybe we're looking for one thing and then we find something else. Oh, I forgot I had that. So keep that in mind, okay? All right, I'm going to close these up while we start constructing our card. I'll use one of those later, one or two of them with the sentiments. You're going to start with 5.5 by 8.5 card base. I'm using Pear Pizzazz today, which is one of the coordinating colors in the You're a Peach Designer Series paper. I've scored it at 4¼ inches. Now I'm going to do some cutting. Don't fold it yet. Oh, Alice, I'm glad you like my nails. They are kind of fun. I just got them redone yesterday and I picked the same color. It's super bright, but it's fun for summer. I'm going to go over 1/4 inch and I'm actually going to cut to the score line I made. Now, when you're doing this, pay attention to that cutting blade where you're holding, because there are lines engraved on each side and you need that. That's where the actual point of the cutting blade is. So you need that line to match up with your score line. That's how you know you get right to the score line. Now I need to do the same thing on the other side. You can either start at the score line, put your blade down there. Let me go to 1¼ and pull down. Or what I like to do, I'm gonna push my paper trimmer up so you can see it. I like to just go to the bottom and do the same thing on the opposite side. So do you see that? I had it this way, measured over 1¼ inch and scored from the outer edge to the score line. Flipping it around, going to the 1¼ inch, and I'm going to go from the edge of the cardstock to the score line again. Whoops, make sure your cutting blade is in the right place so that you are cutting where you need to. And I'm going to do the same thing. Again, I'm going to pay attention to that line over there, okay? Because if I match up this indented or etched in line of the blade holder with my score line, it'll be right, I'll end that cut right where I need it to. So you might see my head because I'm trying to look over it. And this is what you have so far. Now the next thing you do, I want you to bend those flaps down. And this is going to be the front of our card. And what we need to do here is score at 2 1/8 on just that center flap. And that is going to be, get the cutting blade out of the way, that is going to be what forms the easel. Okay. Cindy's asking, where does the trimmer show 1 1/4? So you can actually see it from both sides. If I need 1 1/2 or less, I tend to do it on this side. And you can see it starts here, goes to 1/2 inch, 3/4, 1, and then 1 1/4, and right where it meets the brown plastic is 1 1/2. So there's one place. Or you could move it to the other side, and here's 1 1/4. 1, 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, 2. Okay? And we'll put that away. And now, and I'm working with some 1/8 measurements today. We're going to hold that to the end because I want to explain something. Okay, I've got 2 of the Designer Series paper from You're a Peach, and these are cut 1 1/8 to, let me think, 1 1/8 by 4 1/8, because I just wanted a real small margin. Cindy, no problem. I'm glad you asked. Chances are somebody else has the same question. So never hesitate to ask. And sometimes it's easier for me to show you than to type the answer to you. I'm a very visual person, so I think a lot of people are, especially when it comes to crafts and making things. So I'm happy to take a few seconds out to answer your question and show you. And I'm putting these on the flap. So those were 1 1/8 by 4 1/8. If you want a larger margin, make them 1 by 4. Or if it's easier for you to cut 1 by 4. Now these measure 2 7/8 by 2 inches. Okay, 2 7/8 by 2 inches. And again, you could adjust the dimensions of these if you wanted a larger border of the pear pizzazz showing. And it's just, you know, personal preference. I use both at different times. Probably most often I use 1/4 inches for the layering, but sometimes I just want the smaller for whatever reason. Okay, now here I'm going to tell you and show you what I did, but I will also show you an alternative if you're trying to save some cardstock. I cut my white cardstock 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. The reason I did that instead of 5 1/4 by 4 like I usually do is I wanted the inside border to match my outside border. Okay, so this is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. And I have a piece of 1/2 inch designer series paper that I'm just going to put right along the bottom here. Whoops, dropped it right in my lap. Just like that. Now let me show you the original card. On my original card, the only part that opens is that center. I have sealed down these 2 other parts because, in my opinion, for sending this, it doesn't really, you know, if I'm doing this and I'm writing my message here, consider what you would be using this part for. Is there a reason you need these to open? Or do you want to write something? Do you want to add something? In that case, don't seal them down. But for my own personal preference, I'm going to adhere mine down. Now, if that's what you want to do, and you want to make your white smaller to save cardstock, you can do that. I would suggest you go beyond the 3-inch center though, just so that you, when everything lays flat, you don't have any weird seams going on or spaces you weren't anticipating. But I'm going to go ahead and seal mine. And when you do that, just make sure the side and bottom edges are matched up nicely. And this is what we have so far. Okay. On my first card, I stamped a small sentiment here and was thinking putting happy birthday inside, but didn't quite turn out the way I wanted it to. So I'm going to make a change and I'll show you that now. I'm going to, where are my paper snips? Here they are. So I've stamped happy birthday on just a 1/2 inch strip. And I'm going to cut those 2 words apart. For now, I'm just going to lay them up here. Like that. I will pump them up on dimensionals. And then I'm going to put my peach lower than I did on my first card. And I will add all of these to that white rectangle. Remember, it's the scallop. No, let me think. Scallop borders dies? Can't think. I just said it a few minutes ago. Scallop contours dies. Scallop contours dies. When you have several pieces that you're going to be adding, adhering, putting on dimensionals, whatever, kind of lay them out first to see how everything fits in the space, and then do your adhering. Does anybody have the You're as a Peach? Or what is it? You're Sweet as a Peach? I can't even remember my Sweet as a Peach bundle. And I wish all these names were the same. You're a Peach Designer Series paper and Sweet as a Peach bundle. That's what it is. Cindy says, not yet. That makes me think it's on your wish list. Kathy, I agree. This is beautiful, beautiful paper. Oh, I might do this different than I thought. Let me try it. Nah, I don't like that. So there's my fun, happy birthday. Now I want to adhere it. I'm going to center it on the center flap or the center easel, but I only want to adhere the bottom half of it. Okay, bottom half of it. And remember, when we have pieces like that, put some adhesive on the bottom of the piece that actually fits solid on this. And then to make sure you don't put adhesive beyond or higher than it should be, I put some right there at the top. So the bottom here and the top there. Just a little tip. Doing that helps me remember to keep the adhesive on just the one side, or in this case, the bottom half. And I have this now. And the last thing I need to do is put something here to raise the, I want to punch something and raise it with dimensionals so it holds that easel up in place. So now what I'm going to do is, and I'm going to use my oval punch for this. I'm going to stamp. I think I'm going to use Calypso Coral for this. And I'm going to stamp It's Your Day for the birthday person. I'm going to stamp it with the small oval from our double oval punch. So happy this carried over, aren't you? It's in our carried over from the mini catalog to our new annual catalog. And I'm going to pop this up right there. So I'll adhere the small label to the large label and then use my dimensionals because I need this to be raised on the card so it holds that easel up in position. Now I have made other easel cards with you, and if you remember, let me see, I thought I had right here to show you. Maybe I don't. Yes. And I'll repost this to my blog. but it says, this is an easel card to display card, fold as shown, and prop open. And this is for the easel card that uses the whole front to make the easel. But I think you can include this with this card and they will know to prop that up. But I'll try to repost that. Or it's probably in the files on Stampin' Piece with Mary Knabe or Stampin' Piece VIP group, both on Facebook. So kind of position this where you think you want it. Just make sure that you are within this frame up from the bottom. You don't want it right on the edge, and equal spacing from left to right. And there's the finished card. What do you think? Oh, Joan, that is a great thought. Joan is saying in place of doing a label or sentiment that's raised, you can even use an embellishment like our ladybug embellishments or the new bumblebee embellishments would work great. Anything that's just large enough and stands up a little bit to hold that in place. So I really like this. And I just think it's a fun variation on our typical easel card. Now I'm going to ask this. Do you all, I should prop this up a little bit. Do you all have a preference, left or right? Do you like the happy birthday at the bottom or at the top? Joan, I'll have to try some of these easel cards with the embellishment. And by the way, the ladybug embellishments that Joan mentioned are on the last chance list. So if you want them, please order them while you still can get them. Lots of you are saying, okay, happy birthday at the top. Vicky says she loves them both. Miriam says at the top. Kathy at the top. Okay, good. I'm glad I changed it up. To me, when I finished this card and looked at it, to me it seemed bottom heavy. Doing it this way, I feel like everything's more balanced. But that's just my thought. So I was curious to know if we were thinking the same. But I will go ahead and give away both of these cards today. There are several of you on here. I appreciate you all spending part of your Friday afternoon, especially since it's a beautiful day outside where most of us are. So I'm going to give away both cards. I will draw the names today, but the cards may not go into the mail for a few days because I usually photograph them, write up my blog post, things like that. Jenny says she agrees, more balanced here. Awesome. Okay, and I hope you like the sponge dauber technique. If you have lots of dies and you like that sponge dauber technique, I would suggest that you purchase some of our sponge daubers because they can really just change up the look of your stamped images, and it's so easy to do. I will tell you one other thing too. Actually, I should stamp some peaches on the envelope, don't you think? The other thing I was going to mention, let me find the Calypso Coral. Here's a fun way to make polka dots too. You just press down completely and pull up. Just want to make sure you go straight down and straight up. So this is a great way to make some polka dots. Polka dots are a great thing to use if you're wanting to make some of your own designer series paper or put a pattern as a background. Joan says, yes, fancy up the envelope. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp some peaches for my envelopes. So if you want to hang out while I do that, please do. Yesterday, I drove from Columbus to Cincinnati and then back. but I was able to get together for the first time in a very long time with my upline and her upline and some of the other demonstrators in our group. It was so much fun. Of course, the first thing I asked when I walked in was, hey ladies, are we hugging or not? Most of us have not seen each other in about 1.5 to 2 years. So, and I'm a hugger. I really am, and I have missed that. The only people I've really hugged are my kids, my adult kids. They're not little, but they're still my kids, right? Okay, there's one peach. I'm going to repeat. I used to store my sponge daubers with the sponge up, and then I saw that Patty Bennett, who I admire very much for her business, had her stored this way. And I thought, well, isn't that super brilliant? Because now you don't have to get your fingers inky pulling them out of there. You just stick your finger right in and pull it out. So I love when we learn those tips that just make our life a little bit easier, kind of tricks of the trade. And now I will stamp the leaves. Of course, another way to get some variation in color is to stamp off onto scrap paper. If I wanted some light colored leaves, I would stamp off and then I would stamp onto whatever I was using. Just another thought there for you. This, again, I'm just going to tap the leaves, the edges of my leaves into the old olive. Okay. Somebody's asking, Kathy is asking, what are the colors I'm using? So for the peach, I'm adding pale papaya and then Calypso Coral. Pale papaya, which is one of our new in colors, and Calypso Coral. For the leaves, I'm using Pear Pizzazz and Old Olive. Okay, Pear Pizzazz and Old Olive. And you might want to experiment with other greens, with other oranges, and see what you like. These are the ones that for me just came up, and I like this combination. Gail, the case for the sponge daubers can be found on Amazon. Just search sponge dauber storage, I believe. And I'm sure you can find one on there. This one holds 40, so it's enough for our 4 color families. So if you want to accommodate older colors or in colors, you might choose to buy a second one. Or you can simply, get the ink out of one of the daubers in a close color and use that one for the in colors and old colors you might have. All right, there you go. Oh, Gail, I'm sorry. You meant the PDF of the colors. Okay. And Cindy, okay, got it. Sorry. I will look for that and try to post it to my Facebook group and my blog. Okay. Give me some time to look for it though, because that's kind of old. But I'll search it. I probably saved it to my computer. All right. I will be sending off both of these cards to 2 lucky winners. If you enjoyed this demonstration of my center Easel card, I don't really know if it has an official name. That's what I'm calling it. The official name I'm giving it is the center Easel card. And if you really enjoyed this, please do share this video. with others so they can watch it on replay. And then we just simply share the fun. Kathy, I do not typically clean my daubers. There's really no reason to if I have one per color. One thing I would suggest though is, there's some more peaches I did. And this one, well, that's the one we did together. So I'll try it here. Sometimes, you know, before you're starting, because you want to have control over the ink, just maybe test it to see if there's a lot of ink on there. This one doesn't have a lot. This one, Calypso Coral, depending on the project, you know, I might want to tap out some of that ink. And really, to do that, just kind of do this, and it takes some of those deep colors out. And then do not press this into the ink pad, tap it into the ink pad, right? We can always add more color, but tap it. So if you do get some buildup of ink on some of these, you can just tap it out. You see that one doesn't have much ink on. If you're using these for a different color, so for example, I said I didn't have one specifically for this has a lot of ink on after today. I pulled up the sponge dauber I have for Petal Pink and used that with my Pale Papaya. But I'm glad I pulled this up because Pale Papaya and Petal Pink are very light colors. So I would like to get as much of the ink out of there, especially since, you know, we were messing with the two colors. Alrighty. Any other questions? Any other questions? If you don't have a sponge dauber for each color of ink, I do suggest you wash it out with cold water, get all the ink out, and then let it air dry until it's completely dry. If you have a sponge dauber that's damp and you're putting it to the ink, it's going to make that ink darker than what you may want. Thank you everybody for spending some of your time with me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will be setting out these 2 peachy cards to 2 lucky winners. Have a great weekend. See you soon.